On a dark night came a calamity that changed the lives of all the inhabitants of a small village. The flames swept all around, the roofs of the houses lit with bright flames, and the inhabitants rushed in a terrible fright, trying to save themselves and find help. Amidst all this chaos was a little boy who cried and cried with fear, trying to find his parents. But everything was completely hopeless and the boy was left alone. Suddenly, out of the ashes and remnants of the fire, a dark monster appeared, with scary red eyes, enormous in size, with a strange body covered with mucus, skulls and a bunch of sharp tentacles. His teeth were terrible. When he opened his sinister breath, a lightning ball flew into the sky, destroying the city and everything that appeared in his way. The monster spared no one and burned everything in its path. The inhabitants were in absolute despair, because they knew that if they did not find a way to defeat the monster, their world would be destroyed forever. When suddenly a little girl saw him, who also lost her parents and cried because she was very scared for her life. And here we see a huge explosion that stops the lightning of the monster, although it is not clear how. The building near which the girl was still alive, and the lightning of the monster, scattered across the sky. Suddenly, a man with a shield in his hand appeared before her and protected her from the falling wreckage of the building, which began to collapse. It was he who repelled the monster's mighty blow, as he was already well trained and ready to confront it. While fighting, he used his shield Holy Bastion to block his blows and protect the city from evil. He realized that his powers were still insufficient, so he asked the earth spirits to give him the power to defeat an evil and cunning rival. By loading the arrows into his bow, he turned them with a butterfly dance into magical. And suddenly, we saw a dazzling bright light. It was an explosion that was watched by all the survivors of the village, which completely destroyed the lightning of the monster and saved homes from destruction. It would seem that the evil lightning of the monster was shaken and turned back, leaving the territory and the villagers alone. But this only angered the monster more, and the lightning also turned into monsters that went on the offensive even more. There was another evil serpent in the sky, and it was clear that he was there to complete his mission. And then he lashes out at the monster and bites down his part. After that, a loud and scary sound is emitted into the sky, which informs the whole city and the monster that before it, the gluttonous infernal snake. It turns out that he was summoned by the archer who had sent her magic arrows into the monster a minute earlier. But wait, there's something wrong with the monster, and suddenly everything starts to fly apart and we see some cuts on his tentacles. You can see that the battle is ongoing and another player is involved in the game, only it is not clear who it is and whose side it is on. Perhaps it is a villager, as the monster is still being attacked. When suddenly, bam, boom, and the tentacles of the monster just scattered on all sides of the small town thanks to 100-layer cut, and the villagers were saved. It turned out that the last, a work-still shadow assassin named Pierce, who was the last to rush to the help of the villagers. And here we have a mighty archer named Eli Fei, who was just sending her magic arrows to the tentacles of the monster, which is very upset that this monster is completely incapable of them and only wasting their time. It is stopped by Edmund, which is flame magician and called the very fiery snake. He asks Eli Fei to remember their sensei's words: no matter the mission's difficulty, we should always treat it seriously and never underestimate our opponents. The holy knight with a shield named Adrian also did not stand aside and rejoiced at the success of the team. Let us do our best, guys. If we can kill this monster quickly enough, we might have enough time to grab a drink. Then the monster awoke again and was furious. His eyes shone demonic red, and steam from his mouth flew out of the flames. As he starts screaming and getting even more violent, his lightning bolts are no longer blue but red. There was no end to his rage. People are just panicking and everyone is hiding where they can, afraid of the terrible pieces from the flames that are everywhere. Meanwhile, a very dangerous soul missile flew into the sky. This is a powerful energy strike that has gone at the defenders. At this point, a blue snake arrives to help the guys, who easily intercepts Soul Missile with his powerful breath and deals a crushing blow to the monster. The evil beast is very much shaken and is in a misunderstanding, looking up with his red eyes at our dragon with blue wings and sharp claws, on top of which stands another hero. He looked valiantly at the monster and said, "So, you re the monster that burned down 3 cities and devoured countless humans." After that, fury appeared in his eyes and he continued, "For your heinous actions, we, the Walrus Ivory Guild, will vanquish you." His name was Eugene Gate, he was Dragon Knight Walrus Ivory. After that, Absolutely, the entire team of walrus ran into an attack on an evil monster. And the villagers who were watching the whole thing were cheering them up and shouting support for the heroes. But all of a sudden, their expressions and eyes were filled with fear and misunderstanding, and the darkness was again visible over the city. Suddenly, out of nowhere, another evil monster appears in the dark, also with red eyes and filled with rage, completely unlike the previous one and 100 times more dangerous. The whole ground around him is red and burning. Suddenly, in the dark, yellow eyes and Demon King form, who all the time just say one phrase, that you need to kill them all. In his hands is a seemingly simple at the first sight of a stick. But a second later, when we see her full length, she's like this huge piece of meat he's holding in one hand. And in the second, he holds our heroes, who at first said that the monsters are very light and now, lie powerless and ask someone to release them. The inhabitants of the city, having seen this picture, were very afraid, constantly repeating the phrase. Even the Walrus Ivory Guild cannot kill this thing. We re-doomed. It's a Demon King class monster. Run! The monster stopped at nothing and continued to destroy everything in its path. Until he was shouted after, "Foul demon! Stop right there!" Of course, the demon was in a misunderstanding of what was happening and who dared to contradict him, but then, over the burning house, there was another creature who had his own view of the situation. It was a brave little mushroom that rode a pig and was absolutely not afraid to resist such a monster and continued to send him his threats, saying, "Or else we will smack your little butt." The sequel will soon be available on the channel, so if you want to see the second part and more similar stories, be sure to leave a comment and like. See you in the next video.